What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the GGBL. Trade day is upon us, and there's not that many trades, guys. But if you do go ahead and look at the Google form that I've linked in the comment section here and in the description of this video, you'll see the voting form. So this is what I do for the community. You guys can have your voices heard if you like the trade offers that I've proposed, or if you don't, you're able to vote on that and tell me exactly how you feel. Do you want this trade to pass or do you not? 60% yes votes, and the trade will pass. If it's anything less, 59, even though that's a majority, it's not going to pass. So it's got to be 60%. It's got to be a pretty overwhelmingly good majority there to have that trade pass. So first trade we're going to talk about here, and it's one that honestly I'm a little skeptical on it, but it is a trade that I'm going to throw out there. Tyron Rex, center fielder here for Las Vegas. They're 6.5 games out of the division. They're 7 games above 500. They are half a game out of the postseason. They're trailing and chasing the Oklahoma City Cyclones, the Columbus Cardinals, and the Swamp Monsters for wild card positioning. They pretty much only have those 3 teams ahead of them to worry about because it doesn't seem like the Jacks are going to do it. They're 5.5 back. The Breeze are 7.5 back. So they've got a really good shot at making the postseason. However, Tyron Rex at the beginning of the year said that he wanted out. And it wasn't dependent on them making the playoffs. He just was unhappy being there. So he's enjoyed the success that they've had to get to this point. They're so close making the postseason, but he wants out officially. So it's just a weird situation. So the one team that makes the most sense to me would be a team like Houston. They're on a heater right now, 9-1 in the last 10, just to get to 500. You take a look at the standings here. They're 4 games back from the Central. And we know what the Maroons have done in the past. We know what the Monarchs have done in the past. These 2 teams have collapsed, basically. So really, the NL Central, to me, is the team who's going to get hot. And it looks like Houston is the hottest team in the GGBL right now. So Houston makes a lot of sense. However, when you look at what they're offering, Vegas, they need, if they're going to replace a player like Tyron Rex, who is Mr. Speed, heavy contact hitter, not big on the power, great fielder. He's an all-around great player, but the power severely lacks. Then if you look at the right fielder situation, you got Franco, you've got Jernigan, Yamashita. There's just not a lot of pop there, right? In the entire outfield, there's just not a lot of power at all. So if there's a move to be made, if Vegas wants to sell on a player like Tyron Rex, I think they probably should lean into acquiring some power in the outfield. Because when you look at Houston, what they have to offer is they have to offer similar players to Tyron Rex. But the problem is with your Houston, you don't necessarily want to give up your entire team identity for a player like Tyron Rex. Because you kind of already have Tyron Rex, don't you? You've got Crosley Katz. You've got Waylon Stacy. So this 1-2 punch, basically combine that and you have Tyron Rex. If you're Vegas, you might want these 2 players because now it's spreading the lineup out. It's making the lineup a little bit better. You could get Katz and Stacy, which might make a lot of sense for Houston. Because when you look at the center field situation, you've got Raynell and Rico and Mitre, and then you got Henry Cabrera over here as well. Other part of this is that you've got Las Vegas who needs pitching. And honestly, when you look at Houston, they don't have a lot of pitching to give up anyway, but you got to give something up to get something. And if you're Vegas, you're really looking at Houston's pitching and says, guys, we need at least we need one good solid arm. We're trying to make the playoffs too. So I look at this trade. It's weird, right? It's a little weird. You can make it make sense if you try hard. You make it make sense if you try hard. I don't necessarily know if there's a deal here to be made. I'd like to believe that there is. But I'm almost thinking that they have to move Boyd Rush. It would sting. Like, you can't get rid of Derek Sparks. What value would he bring to the mix, right? That's not going to help Vegas in the playoff push. You could trade Javon Rockwell, but again, like he would jump in and be one of their 3, maybe 4th starter. So that kind of helps. But if you're Houston, you're on such a big run. Do you sell these 2 guys? Stacy's 26. Crosley Katz is 28. They're really good players. You kind of get a Tyron Rex B. You know what I mean? Like, he's not Tyron Rex, but he is kind of. And then you get the power guy with Waylon Stacey. That's 2 outfielders that you grab here. Might help you if you're Vegas, plus the pitcher in Boyd Rush. That's a risk that Houston is willing to make, trading 3 mid-80 overall players for a player like Tyron Rex. Tyron Rex can change a game for you in gameplay. Heavy contact hitter, great vision, great fielder. The speed is there. If he gets on base, he's almost a guarantee to steal a bag. So you got to give up something to get something. He's 25 years old as well. Another part of this, if you're Vegas, you know that this guy wants out. So rather than have him walk, you could move him, and you could actually acquire some pieces that might help you. So that's the argument there. Yes, they're getting rid of some pretty big pieces to their lineup, some reasons why that they're on this 9-game winning streak. But it might help Vegas. It might help Houston. You got to try a little hard to see the lining here, but I think it makes sense. So Katz, Stacey, 2 mid-80 overall players who are kind of getting up there in age a little bit, and Boyd Rush, 12-game winner for a player that's as dynamic as Tyron Rex. That's the trade. Next trade is kind of another weird one here, but I think you might be able to force it a little bit. Satchel Michaels has struggled a little bit too much for his overall rating. You look at what he's done. He's 28 years old. He's seen a little bit of regression right now. He's got the 5 years of MLB service. But you look at what he's done in his career. He has never had a winning season as a starting pitcher. And he's had his ERA inflated every year. He gives you about 160, maybe 170 is probably the median number. 170 innings per year. Never had a 200 strikeout season. And the quality starts, he does sometimes get into double digits. So basically less than half, not even that. Yeah, it's most of his games that he starts, he's not going to give you a quality start. So there's that. Then you look at his hitting numbers. He's probably a better hitter than he is a pitcher. So really that's what the team that's trading for him would really be acquiring here at this point. Michaels is a weird player. Let's just put it that way. He's a strange cat. But he is a 93 overall, so you do have to consider that. The one team that I think makes the most sense here for Satchel Michaels is in fact the Miami Moonshots. This is a team that has not really had a star player since Timothy Pierce, and he's gone. Now he's over there in San Francisco. So when I look at Miami, they just don't have like a big bat in this lineup. They need that. They completely need that. They're 2 games back from the good boys right now. You look at the NL wildcard, they are in fact in the lead by quite a big margin there. They're in front of the Gauchos by at least 5 games. I think that would be the number there, as well as the Copperheads and the Heat as well. So they've got a pretty good lead when it comes to the wild card standing, but they need another bat. They can't get through the postseason without a bat that other teams fear, and Satchel Michaels will do just that. He would step in and he would supposedly be the ace, quote unquote the ace, but you do have some veteran arms like Michael Jordan, Rick White, and even Brad Battle in here too that can kind of maybe cushion Satchel Michaels a little bit. Maybe he's not the ace of the staff. Maybe he's actually a number 2 guy. Maybe he's even a number 3 guy. Go up against the other team's number 3. You don't have to go out there and go up against a James Monroe. You don't have to go out there and go up against an Alexei Shevchuk, in the NL side. You don't have to go up there against an Ely or Lederman in LA. So you can be that number 2, number 3 guy, and maybe that can soften you up a bit. It can cushion you, right? You can sandwich in between these two players. So when I look at Miami, what do they have to offer? Not much. Look at what we're working with here. So we got Brad Battle, PJ Sparbory, Ira Weeks, Pimentel, Herring, Rick White, Cabrera, Jordan, Mac Perez, Stacey Hayward, Von Dietrich. I mean, you don't want to blow up your roster for a guy like Satchel Michaels. They don't have a ton of prospects either. And the prospects that they do have are a little bit older, like Sonny Strong might be able to get thrown into this mix, but he's a shortstop and second base, third baseman too. He might be actually a player I'd throw in, honestly. Like, he's not going to move the needle for Colorado, but he's just a guy that will help the minor league system. But I look at the rest of their makeup here. They've got a 35-year-old outfielder, Diego Feliz. I would probably throw in Kyle L. Winthrop here. He's 22 years old at 71 in an A. So I'd probably throw him in there. He's got some work to do, but he is a custom player, so he's up for channel points upgrades in the offseason, so that might be a good fit. Javon Brown might be a guy, but he's 30 years old, so it's like, if you're not going to trade that. You're not going to trade Satchel Michaels for an aging veteran player. You want prospects. And I just look around and I'm thinking Benito Reina, 25, 76C, that's not going to cut it. Miami's kind of old. They don't have a ton of players to go out and just give up for a team that's going to be rebuilding like Colorado. You look at their second base situation. They got a young guy here, Joey Lambert, but he's also a C potential player. First base, a lot of C potential players here. Even the guys that do have high potential, they're a little bit older. So it's a tough trade to pull off, but I think it would really help Miami if they were able to do it. So what we're going to offer here to Colorado, back to Colorado, it's going to be Satchel Michaels. That's it, just one player that Miami's going to go grab, and they are going to offer up Curtis Brendel. He was a player way back, I think, in season number 1. He was a pitcher for, I believe, the San Antonio Bandits, and I could be wrong about that, but Brendel has had his struggles up at the big leagues. 13 and 18 in relief, right? Does get a bunch of strikeouts. It's kind of his big thing is strikeouts. He's a reliever in my mind. Yes, he's got 80 stamina. I just look at him as like a relief pitcher. High leverage relief guy. You need a strikeout, you put him in there. Which, situationally, I think that Colorado does very well when they have that situational guy that they can use. Curtis Brendel might be a really good player for them. So we'll throw him in. It's going to be Brendel. And then we'll also throw in Kyle L. Winthrop right there. So we got Brendel's a 77C pitcher, can replace Michaels. Replace, quote unquote, replace. Kyle L. Winthrop, a potential player, can help them out in that end. And then they're going to throw in this guy here too, Peter Dorsey, who is a little bit kind of like Satchel Michaels, right? He's never had a winning season. He walks a few too many batters, but does have a pretty standard repertoire, 4-seamer, slider, curve change. No, one quirk here, Road Warrior, and he's signed to a pretty decent contract, $1.5 million for the next 4 seasons. At 23 years old, B potential. He might be a guy that gets hidden down there as number 5 starter, but as another left-hander, they're going to get Brendel and Peter Dorsey. Yes, his numbers are inflated. Whose pitchers aren't, right? In MLB The Show sim stats. But I don't know. I think it might help him. And for Satchel Michaels, he finds a new home. He gets to start over. But, at 28 years old, he is getting up there a little bit. But, again, don't be fooled by that overall rating. He's never had a winning record as a starting pitcher. His numbers are terrible. It's just like that's what you're paying for. So yes, they're giving up. Miami's giving up a couple pitchers here, but I think it's good value for what they're giving up. They're giving up Dorsey, Brendel, and Kyle Winthrop, who's kind of a little bit of a project outfielder at this point, but it is a decent player. He's fast. He's got to work on the fielding a little bit, but those numbers will probably play in the minors for a couple seasons before he can come up there, make an impact in the outfield for Colorado. And honestly, when you look at their outfield situation, they could stand to get a little bit younger there as well. Another trade happening with Colorado, and I gotta say, this is just what they are, guys. This is what they are. They are a 500 team that just found a way to win the Gold Series in year 2 of the league, of the series. 2 games above 500. They've only been above 500 one time. One time. They've never reached their goal other than 2024, winning the Gold Series. Reached the postseason. That's all you had to do. They couldn't win the division. They came 6 games under the following year. They couldn't win the division again, 2 games under. And they're not reaching the postseason this year. So it's a full-on rebuild. They're going to keep their young guys, like St. Clair, like Dufour LaPont. Navoa at 29 years old could be a guy that's also going bye-bye. But we'll talk about that later. They did acquire a player like Kevin Dixon. Maybe he's a guy that's also going to go bye-bye as well. I mean, it's a lot of money, $20 million. He does have some good quirks, but he's a solid player. And plus, they have a ton of shortstops currently on the roster. Julian Lorenz, 112 at-bats. Henry Mata, not even playing. So it kind of makes sense to say goodbye to Kevin Dixon, doesn't it, at that point? You're paying him a bunch of money. You might need to use that money for free agents down the road. But, Henry Mata is also a guy that could fetch some value too. So maybe you do keep Dixon in, maybe you trade Henry Mata away just for like a couple prospects or something. You also have Mike Ellis that's on the up and up. He's 23 years old at an A. You've also got a couple other guys down here too, like Richard Kirk. I don't know if he's ever going to work out, but some good potential numbers is all I'm getting at here. Dylan Joseph as well at third base. He can also play shortstop. So they've got guys. They've got prospects. They've got young guys. So I think what Colorado's going to try to do is they're going to try to ship out all of their old guys, all their old stuff. And I think what that comes down to is, in fact, CC Chavez. It's going to be hard to say goodbye for Colorado fans because they have some fond memories of CC Chavez, but a 31-year-old catcher losing a lot of points in overall, not really going to be a center fielder, could be a corner outfielder for a team, maybe a first baseman, but you see the numbers kind of slowly dipping off there, right? Slowly dipping off there for CC Chavez. Plus, the overall rating is starting to come down as well. So for Colorado, I think what they need to do, they need to go after some young pitching because they don't really have it. I'm looking at the potential numbers here. They've got some decent arms, some 26-year-olds, some 25-year-olds. They're close to rebuilding that staff. And again, you look at Satchel Michaels, and he's going to be leaving. So I look at the LA Knights acquiring CC Chavez, and I know this is probably going to get a big groan from the community because we're all tired of the LA Knights. But honestly, they haven't done much in this rendition of the GGBL. They look at what they've done. They made the postseason in year 1, year 2, and they have not made it since then. In fact, they've been an under 500 team for the last 3 seasons until this year, where they have the potential at making the playoffs. They're 5 games back of the West, and they're a game up in the wild card above the Gauchos and the Copperheads. So I look at the LA Knights as needing to make a move, needing to make a splash. This is LA, for God's sakes, right? So for LA, I think what they could do is they could actually trade Drake Coleman Jr. away, because look at what he can do. He's a custom guy. He's going to get some channel points upgrades, although I haven't heard from the Drake Coleman Jr. owner in a while, so I'm not sure where he's at, but he can play catcher. He's first baseman catcher. I think that would be a good addition. So it'd be 2 players for CC Chavez. He's now down to a B potential. and he's regressing at 31, right? So you don't want to give up too much. So I think Drake Coleman, big prospect for them. He's 24 years old, so it's about time that he starts getting some playing time somewhere. He's kind of blocked at this point by Schmidt and Ariano. It's going to be a couple seasons for Drake Coleman to even come up and play. So he needs to get into some game time here at the GGBL level. I think he'll grow if he does that. So that's going to be a player that's going to be thrown in. Plus, they need a pitcher, right? They have to get a pitcher somewhere. And I think that a nice little addition here would be Phil Murillo. Yes, the numbers are not there. He's 3-10 at the AA level. He's a little bit of a project, but he's also an A pitcher as the potential goes. He's going to hit 97 on the 4-seam, 93 on the 2-seam, 83 on the 12-6 curve. He seems more like a potential reliever to me, a 3-pitch reliever instead of a starter. So I think between those two guys, Murillo is an A potential, and then you got Drake Coleman Jr., starting pitcher and a first base / catcher going over to Colorado. I think it's a good trade for both teams. Look at the outfield. You got McGinnis out there in left field. He could play over McGinnis. He's got 17 bombs, though, 241. I could see that. Not going to play center field over Almanzar and Traxler. Those guys are too fast. He could play over Johnny Kent out in right field. So I think that's kind of where I think CC fits the most is as a right fielder. And if you do need him to catch, then he'll be available at that point. But yeah, so I think that's a good fit for both squads. Again, for Colorado, they'd be getting rid of CC Chavez. They'll be calling up Drake Coleman Jr. to be their catcher. And then you do get a first baseman in the mix with Drake Coleman to back up Paxton Burnside. Chu Bong has really not put it together. This is his first crack at being a GGBL player at this level. He's 24. So maybe it's just taking another insurance policy on that. And then again, so for starting pitching, you acquire Murillo, who's like a 74A, I think he was. So he's going to fit right in there as part of the youth movement for pitching for Colorado. So we're not quite done with Colorado just yet. We are going to be looking at trades for Omar Novoa. 14 bombs right now, 267 batting average, and he's just been a very solid hitter, and he's really come into his own that he's gotten really a lot of playing time. 133 games, most that he's ever had, so he was a GGBL champ in Season 2. And then ever since then, he's just been playing every single day. He's good for 20-plus doubles. He's good for a few triples every now and then. Very, very, very solid player. Doesn't get caught stealing a whole lot. He's just a very overall good player. So when you look at Michigan, they seem to be like the perfect team that fits exactly what Colorado needs. And giving up a player like Omar Novoa, who fits perfectly for Michigan, you look at the outfield situation now. You got Puckett. It's about the only guy that's really performing. You got a couple guys down here like Sposato and Bonilla, and you know they're just kind of throw-ins at this point. But Humberto's doing all right. Rosenberg's not even up. You got Torres, Abernathy, and Carrillo. None of those guys. It's not Carrillo. I know that. It'd be Carillo for Carrillo. This is Carrillo. So he's not producing either. They need an outfielder. They need an outfielder pretty badly. But the thing about Michigan is they are crazy good with the pitching. Crazy good. They got a bunch of options. So I'm looking at a guy like Wade Russell. But I also know that Wade Russell and the owner with Wade Russell has been waiting for his player to be a part of a winner. So I just don't want to send him off there to Colorado. So let's go after Slade Maverick. I know this is another custom player, but he's going to be up for trade. And it's only because he's not, in fact, the guy that's up at the GGBL level right now. That's the only reason why I'm even throwing him in here. So you look at Slade, he's hitting the 97 on the 4-seam, 96-mile-an-hour 2-seam, and then his off-speed is just devastating. Get a 14-mile-an-hour difference with those pitches. It's insane. But think about that. That's still a good get. 77A at 22 years old. Very good get. He's 9-5 right now at the AA level. I just don't think that Michigan, even though they would be really hard-pressed by Colorado, they would sit there and say, guys, you have a ton of great pitching. Give us one. Like, you're getting a really good player with Novoa as an outfielder. You desperately need an outfielder. We desperately need a pitcher. Let's make this thing work. But I think that Wade Russell is just a very integral part of this team. and Colorado doesn't really have that card to play. Novoa is not valuable to the team at this point. They're losers. They haven't won other than year 2 with him on there. So I say that with the good boys having lost to them in the Gold Series. So I think that Slade Maverick is a good get for them. So let's throw him in. And then we'll go ahead and throw in as well some other pitching here like Kevin Macias. He's a 20-year-old 71B. That's a good get. So now they've got 2 players on the board here. So 2 pitchers. That's a good get. And honestly, when you look at the rest of their team, they're a little bit old in some areas. But, Manuel Pryor might be a good addition, too, at third base. 72A. But that is a little bit... That's a tough ask. It's a tough ask. You're giving up one of the best pitching prospects in the game with Slade Maverick. You could throw in Malcolm Hess, but he wouldn't really even play because you've got a huge shortstop logjam there with Colorado. And outfielder-wise, they're just not very they're not very young. So maybe you throw in Todd Abernathy, I guess. He's got some really good vision. If he got some more playing time, maybe he could help. Might be a good replacement, though, for losing a guy like Novoa. So that'll be the trade. I just kind of thought about that on a whim here. So Todd Abernathy, we're going to throw him in there. Todd Abernathy, and then the 2 pitchers. Slade Maverick, 77A, and then we've got Kevin Macias, 20-year-old, 71B. So for the Gauchos, currently 5th ranked. They're 6 games back in the West, and they're 1 game back in the wild card. They're behind the Knights, who are making moves. The Moonshots are making moves, and the team behind them, the Copperheads, are making big moves too. And they're chasing them big time, 9-1 in the last 10. So for the Gauchos, I look at them as a possible team to go back to Colorado and go get themselves a nice contact hitter. I look at what they've got set up here. They've got Connor Murphy play second and play the outfield. Reyes can only play second. You got Sean Merced down here at AAA. He's 23 years old. Can't play anywhere else. You got third baseman Lavernia Sturridge. Finally gets a chance, and he's just been terrible. Guy can't hit. And his numbers aren't really that bad either. 65 vision's not terrible. 52-68's not terrible. But Orlando Glass has not played. He's an 82. He's a 30-year-old player. I think third base is a big deal for them, but he's at a 266. He's a shortstop. Jeremy Floyd is a shortstop. He can hit. He's getting a little up there in age, but I think you move him over to third because I think you make room for a guy like Kevin Dixon. 31 years old, $20 million. We already really talked about him. Signed a 3-year deal. So if you're San Diego, you at least acquire this guy and you have him for a longer term deal. Like, he's not just a one and done type of player. Really kind of opens up more options here for Mike Ellis to come up. If you're Colorado, then you've also got to consider what you want to do with a guy like Lorenz and Mata. These are 2 players that they've never really been able to get rid of, like you see what Mata's been able to do in limited time. So he's really not even gotten a shot as well. So yeah, I think that you get rid of Kevin Dixon, and it's going to cost San Diego a little bit of a pretty penny. And again, it just goes back to the pitching, which they have quite a bit of. I think they get rid of some of their younger guys. Theodore Cho would be one dude. 84 strikeouts, 41 walks. You don't really have any other options down here other than like Eric Dale is a 19-year-old C potential player. But a lot of it's just C potentials, right? So Theodore Cho, not a guy that we're really super familiar with, but he's got some B potential there. He's got some stuff. Kind of an off-speed guy. I think you do throw in Sean Merced. Good player. Has not been able to get up there and play. He's got some good progression as well. And we'll throw in this dude too. Might as well. Johnny Brennan. Kind of all over the place. Good fielder. Power hitter. Can run a little bit. Project player. 71B. I think that's a good move for Kevin Dixon, who's, again, shortstop, long-term deal, and is costing a lot of money for San Diego. Be with him for a couple years before he starts hitting some regression. I think that's some pretty solid moves there. And thinking about this a little bit further, so now that Kevin Dixon is gone, if he does get traded, if you guys do vote yes for that, I think they're probably just going to stick with Lorenz just because he's playing this year and then he's done. Like, they probably won't re-sign him. He just really hasn't really done anything with his career. He's been a decent player, but he's never really taken that next step. And I think just Mata's probably a little bit more valuable. He's 4 years younger. He'll probably get some more playing time now that Dixon is gone. Maybe he plays second base. Maybe that's probably the best fit for him. So the Wisconsin Maples, they need to be a team that buys. You know, they're currently rated 14th in the GGBL, but right now they are 15 games above 500. And they're sitting in first place right now in the AL Central. So they need to make a move. And I think the one team that probably makes the most sense to do that would be the New York Pizzazz. So for the Wisconsin Maples, the thing that I've noticed that this team needs, they need some pitching. They need some pitching pretty badly. And I know that Bembe Pacheco's in here as a 22 overall, or a 22 age, 80 overall B potential player. They've got some good arms. Mackenzie Worth could get the call up here at some point too. Like, he has been a pitcher for them for his entire career. Just getting called down there because they do have other options at this point. But I think if they were able to call up Bembe, if they think he's ready, they call up Pennington. You know, he's doing pretty well down at the AAA level, not walking a lot of guys. So really, their strategy has been kind of cool. Not intentional by me whatsoever. This is like the CPU roster control thing, how the CPU manages the roster. So they would probably do even better if Bembe comes up, if Pennington comes up, if Worth comes up, maybe Draymond Cope. That's my guy. I'd like to see him stay with Wisconsin. Maybe if these guys all come up, then they'll look a little bit better. But I think they need to go out and they need to acquire a little something extra. And I think that something extra actually is going to come in the form of Reagan Landish. I think at a 30-year-old clip right now with Reagan Landish, he's never had a winning season other than 2025, year number 3. Other than that, he's just been kind of on and off. He needs another home. He needs to find somewhere else to go. No quirks either for Reagan Landish. And this is his final year on contract. So really, it's kind of a make or break type of season for Reagan Landish. Can he be on a team that pushes for the playoffs, that makes some noise? Can he push them over the top? And for Wisconsin, if you're going to acquire an 87 overall pitcher like that, he immediately steps in and is the number 2 guy right behind Omar Villafuerte, who, of course, is coming back off of that GGC in season 3 where, you know, he got hit in the head. He got nailed in the head. He had a rough year that year in season 4. But ever since then, he's gotten back to form. 16-10, 11-4. Really nice to see that for this guy. So he needs a number 2 guy. BJ Malone is kind of maybe a number 3 guy. Elijah Buck needs to be shifted down. Maybe, again, you put Bembe Pacheco, a youngster, now in the bullpen. He doesn't have to take on that load to being a starter. So I think that is a great move for them. The thing is, with New York, they probably want a young pitcher back. And to be honest with you, I don't really see a whole ton of options here other than my guy, Draymond Cope. Unless they want to move maybe a position player. And right now, I kind of don't see much other than Kevin Adline, which probably isn't going to cut it. Scott Valentine, 25 years old, is a little older. Wally Hills, maybe Michael Estrada is a guy that goes out to New York. You know, he's getting a lot of at-bats, 291, but, you know, his progression is kind of hitting a lull a little bit. He did get up to an A. Garlobo might be a guy as well, 22 years old, A potential. Shortstop, we'll have to see what the shortstop makeup is for New York. But other than that, I don't really see a ton there that they could move, to be honest with you. So Reagan Landish, that's going to be a tough sell. It's going to be a very, very tough sell. So maybe that does have to be my guy here, Draymond Cope. Man, that sucks because I was really hoping to keep him with Wisconsin, but it looks like to make that trade happen, to help Wisconsin right now, I think Draymond Cope's got to be the guy that gets moved. Okay, so the trade to New York for Reagan Landish will be Draymond Cope, a 77A. So that'll be 77A. And then we'll also throw in Luis Garlobo, 22-year-old, 75, a potential shortstop. Pittsburgh, I forgot about them, to be honest with you. I look at Alexander King as a guy who probably needs to find another home. 30 years old. 30-year-old, can also play a little shortstop, but I wouldn't want to do that, just given his fielding numbers. Where does Alexander King fit into any of this? I just don't really know. Columbus? Does he fit with Columbus as a first baseman / DH guy? Not really. Don't really know where he goes. You go to the Firebirds or the Cyclones. Does he fit with the Cyclones? Not really, because you got Berger, you got Braden Leroy, you got Clayton, you got Franks, and Jordan. You can't even DH there. Firebirds. Does he fit with them? I know you got Stoitz. You got Salazar, who's been constantly up and down. You got Adam Bird here. Chuck Storm, Gustavo Pena. So they got DHs there, left and right. Good boys. Doesn't really fit with us either. Got Toby, should say. Dobie. You got Holberman, Blanco, Ronan Henderson down there at AAA. Like we got DH options there. It's not a fit there either. Maybe the Monarchs. Maybe we actually have something with the Monarchs right here. We got Brolo, got Lederman, Horvath. So those positions are taken. Vinskov, Saples, Andino. Somebody's playing time is going to get cut into there. But maybe that's a move. Maybe Alexander King probably fits over there. I think that probably would be a good trade. Let's figure something out with that. So pitching-wise, I don't really see much to give up for Alexander King. Could give up a catcher. Could give up Robin Landish. Doesn't look like he's really going to have a lot of playing time. You get Clay Grieve. You got Mark Kelly. Two young guys up here. What does Reagan Landish offer that these guys don't, So we'll throw in Reagan Landish. I know that Pittsburgh has been kind of missing a catcher here for a little while. Buck Pearson's 30 years old. He's been pretty solid his entire career, but they don't really have anything else up and coming. So that might be a good move. Again, King's down to an 80 overall. So it might be a 1-for-1 swap. If anything, it might be a 2-for-1. But the guy that they acquire, in addition to Robin Landish, might be kind of a C potential guy. Young guy, but maybe he's a little bit like, I think I saw somebody down here. Yeah, this guy, like Paul Royster, 21 years old, a potential, like he's a project pitcher. So that'll be the move. Paul Royster, project pitcher, and Robin Landish. There you go. And one final trade, because I did see this in Discord. The New York Pizzazz are yet again going to trade someone, and it's going to be Avante Duckworth. This guy gets moved every single season. He's just a selfish player. He's a selfish player. People get tired of him. It gets around. Word gets around. It's like, well, he's a good player, but you just deal with his crap every now and then. And I think teams are just finding out that they just can't deal with it anymore. But Duckworth, he's going to have to get shipped out somewhere. And to where, to be honest with you guys, I really don't know where he would fit. I don't know where he goes. He's already been with the Pittsburgh Hammers. He's been with the Maples. Does he go to the Columbus Cardinals? Is that an option here? They do really miss. They really miss Mario Mazza. So I think maybe that's probably where he ends up. I know the Firebirds don't need him. Cyclones don't need him. I know the good boys don't want him. We're good. Moonshots could take him on, but they don't really have enough prospects now after the move that they just made to go get him. Team like the Monarchs, they don't need him. They've got that logjam with shortstops. The Maroons, maybe St. Louis. What does St. Louis need? Well, they got Steve Nunez. I think that they're perfectly happy with that. I think that they're fine there. The Emeralds. Ooh. That might be the move there. So for a guy like Duckworth, I know I was just talking about how Seattle seems like they're good. They're fine. But, Irvin, he's got 12 home runs, but that 206 batting average, and they got Campbell down here at 198. They could make that move. They could trade for that. They could do that move. It just looks like it's got to be for a pitcher because they don't really have enough youth on offense to make that move work, in my opinion. So it's probably gonna have to be like Richie Dorsey. I'm not thinking they're gonna acquire much from Duckworth because he's just kind of a cancer. So maybe Seattle says, we'll give you Dorsey, we'll give you Hopper, so we give you 2 B potential pitchers, and that's it. We're not going to just go out here and destroy our offense for that type of player. That's going to give us headaches. We just kind of got rid of a headache in Kenneth Alexander Jr. So maybe that's the move, guys. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here at this point. I just don't see much else that they could do. You don't want to blow it up. Duckworth's he might be gone in a year, free agent wheel spin and whatever, So maybe that's what they do. So Darren Hopper and Richie Dorsey, 2 starting pitchers, because New York, you got to think if that trade passes with Reagan Landish, they're going to need more of a youth movement there, right? So they got some B potential pitchers now for Avante Duckworth. So they get some power, they get some pop, they get some much needed offense from second base, and then Zaza can end up coming up and start to play for New York. So I think that's a solid move. I'm glad I remember that from the Discord chat because I know there was some talk that they wanted Duckworth to find another home. So yeah, that's the trade we're gonna make with New York and Seattle. All right, guys, last trade up on the board here, Lorenzo Zanetti. This one's tough for me because I've really tried. He's my guy. He's one of my custom players. And I've really tried to help New Orleans along in this process of a rebuild, but it just has not seemed to find its way to work for them. I don't know if it's the location. I don't know if they're cursed. I don't know what's going on. But Zanetti being one of my guys, he's an 88 B potential player, 28 years old. He's already starting to see a little bit of regression. I'm not quite sure why. He's only got that 2 years of MLB service. Sorry, GGBL service. Good pitcher, solid pitcher. He's going to surpass the strikeout totals from year number 1 back in 2026. So this guy came over as an international free agent, and he was 25 years old upon entering the GGBL. So you got to think that these international prospects, they're already experienced playing professional ball over someplace else in the world. They're not going to come over here as 21-year-olds like we do for our draft. So Zanetti's getting up there in age. And for the good boys, I want one of my guys. I want one of my guys on this roster. I feel like with Ricky Hoberman is on his way out. He's probably got one more season left before that regression really hits, and you can see it's already hitting big time at 37 years old. He's close to retiring. I'm not going to have a single player on here other than Chris Addison from way back in the Chicago Cubs franchise from a few seasons ago. I do have Hector Varnando, who's one of my pitchers, yet to be called up, 82 overall. It's kind of weird that we keep him down there, but I really want him to just destroy the AAA pitching. That way he gets his overall up and he gets some nice progression there. I don't want to rush him, basically. But I'm looking at this this pitching staff here, and we don't. I mean, Fukumori's he's only 26, so he's a pretty good pitcher, but he's 5-7 right now. We need a true ace of the staff, and I think Zanetti can do that for us. If anything, it's going to push him down to number 2, Fukumori. Zanetti can be our ace guy, which is, it's a makeshift staff these days. It's not like a Shevchuk and Monroe like we've had a couple seasons ago. So, but what are we going to give up? So we got to get, if we want to go get Lorenzo Zanetti at 28 years old, I think we have to give up Miguel Figueroa. I actually acquired him from Boston a few seasons ago, and he's been pretty good down in Double-A, 8-4, 3.22. The strikeouts to walks about it's about a 2-for-1. So he's got to cut down on the walks a little bit there. You can see he's got a 53 walks per 9. So that's an issue for him. But he's 26 years old. He should still be progressing here pretty nicely. And for New Orleans, if they were going to acquire him, he would actually slide in right. He's about middle of the pack. He's going to be one of those guys that vaults up into the system for, in a couple seasons. By the time he's maybe 28, he'll probably be up there and ready to go. So that's obviously not enough to go get Lorenzo Zanetti. So that's one piece for them. Then we're going to throw in LeVar Rowe. This is a catcher / second base, third base. I just don't think he's got enough speed to play there. More of a DH guy. They need some power. They need some offense. They have really nothing there to really supply some oomph, right? Supply some power. But we look back at that roster real quick. Look at the catchers right now. So Parvin Mira's got a 91 power. I didn't even realize that. I thought he was just more of a contact guy. But you got Steve Bourbon, 24-year-old C potential catcher. You got Mario Murillo, not really looking like he's going to get it done in his career as being like a star. They do have McCallum, they do have Valentine, but other than that, that's really all that they've got. They just got to find a way to put this thing together, because it seems like they got some pretty good players. Omar Curran looks like he should be better than a 255 hitter. Russell Francis, 16 home runs, but a 232. So they've got some well-rounded players, but they just don't have that big bat. So maybe LeVar Rowe can help. Plus, we don't really need him. He's actually taking at-bats away from Samuel Wilson, which I can't get the CPU to stop doing that. I want Wilson to be the backup catcher to Chris Addison and the heir apparent to Chris Addison. First base-wise, we don't have much to give them there. I am actually going to throw in George Peralta as well. So an 80 overall, a potential player at 27. He has never been able to get the call-up for an extended period of time with Richmond. He's played in 30 games in his career, and I think he was, he would have been 21 years old when we started this league with an A potential. He's been as good as advertised. We just never have given him the shot because he's been blocked by Ricky Hoberman at third base for a few years. Vic Flutie, I think, was over there at third. So there's been a lot of situations and scenarios where George Peralta has never been able to get the call up. I think he would fit in nicely with New Orleans at third base. He'd actually be the starter if you could swing that. I mean, you've got Andino's the veteran there. Maybe he can split some time there. But Peralta does seem to be a fix there at third base for the long term for New Orleans. And considering that they do get a catcher like LeVar Rowe, and they get Figueroa to slide in within the organization. Maybe that's a good get for New Orleans because, again, Zanetti is seeing a little regression here. Is he going to hit a wall once he hits 30? That's something to look at there. Plus, he's signed up for 4 more seasons. So there's some control there. But, in the B potential, it's not the worst thing in the world. He's not this all-star pitcher, but, he's good. He's a good one. So we're giving up 2 A potentials and then we're giving up 3 A potentials, excuse me. LeVar Rowe, Miguel Figueroa, 74A, LeVar Rowe, 82A, and George Peralta, 80A. I think it's a good trade. Let me know what you guys think. So, guys, that is it for the trade propositions and the proposals. Take a look at that Google form in the description and in the pinned comment below. And I'll give you guys a couple days to fill that out. Let your voices be heard. Again, 60% yes votes and a trade will pass. If it's at 59, 58, 57, yes, it's majority. But it's still not the overwhelming majority and it will not pass. So it needs to be 60% yeses or more in order for a trade to pass. And then I'll just go ahead and do player movement inside of CPU roster control over here. Player movement. And I'll just make those trades happen. And then we'll be ready to go for a August simulation. So we'll get all of August simulated. And we might even do a couple weeks here into September and then just get a kind of a recap of what's going on across the league. Did the trades that each team made, did they help? And how are those statistics different from when that player came over from their original team to their new team? Are they helping? Are they falling victim of the pressure, right? So we'll see how that all goes. So guys, leave a like if you like this thing. I'll see you in the next one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and peace.